the opportunities offered, the thoughts that they get up in the morning about planning lives, educating children, having access to healthcare, being able to not worry about the next day that comes along. Whether they're sweepers, like this lady here, or working in the fields, or any of the agricultural or manual labourers, particularly in those countries that do not have social protection. I've worked in fair trade for more than 25 years, predominantly working with value-added and craft producers. I've worked with UN bodies, I've worked with NGOs, and I spent 7 years working for the Body Shop commercial company. I'm now the director of WFTO, World Fair Trade Organization, Asia, based in Thailand, working with all the dedicated fair trade organizations in Asia. I'm deeply honored to be able to speak to you today. Thank you very much. I also have a brother who's an organic farmer in the UK, and I was brought up on a farm. Article 25 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Everyone has the right to a standard of living, adequate for the health and well-being of himself and his family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care, and the necessary social services and the right to security. There are millions, billions of people who do not have this right. Many of these people are women. Many of them are working every day for us to supplies, international supply chains. It's my dream that every person without these rights and security should be able to work in a fair trade way. There are 500 million people who suffer from chronic malnutrition in the world today. Ban Ki-moon says, how can we rest when so many people are hungry in the world, when there is enough food for all? We've recently had the Sustainable Development Goals launched, 17 goals. Note there about sustainability. Very often the word sustainability is linked highly to the word environment. Yet the first one is no poverty. It's a social goal. And when we look at these 17 goals together, and we look at the organic movement, and we look at the fair trade movement, there is so much synergy that we can create together to address these 17 sustainable development goals. I think it's an opportunity that we cannot afford to miss. The globe cannot afford to miss. So I'm going to talk through what is fair trade and WFTO, how we define and work with fair trade organisations. But I'm really looking forward to then listening to your questions and how we can work together in the future. So this is the international definition that is used in most of the regional European legislation and documents, and now accepted by several governments as well. It has two parts. It's a trading partnership, and it is also a campaign to change the rules for international trade. You note that it mentions particularly the rights of small and marginalised producers and workers, especially in the South. Fair trade has an unfortunate name in that it implies that some trade is not fair. Whereas in fact, that's not what fair trade is about. Fair trade has a definition, just like organic has a definition, And it's very clearly about working with the rights of small and marginalised producers, especially in the south. So we have a definition of marginalised. We can look at how people fall into that category, and we do have tools and mechanisms and ways of indicators for looking at that. So, fair trade is a business model. It's not a charity, it's not an NGO, it works as a business model. It's about buying and selling products, whether locally, internationally. There's no requirement there, but it's also a lobbying mechanism to change the rules of international trade to benefit small and the marginalised producers against the norms of international trade and trade. So there are, as we've seen already, a plethora of sustainable labels out there, many, many. Within fair trade, we have Fair Trade International and World Fair Trade Organization as the two sister organizations who are working at the Fair Trade Advocacy Office in Brussels, working and doing the advocacy and lobbying activities together. Fair Trade International has a standard-based approach, so has a commodity-based approach, so tea, coffee, sugar, so on. WFTO is more of an organisational approach. So if you want to be recognised by Fair Trade International, you have to have a product, and it can be in any supply chain, so it can be an international supply chain. But WFTO, you have to have the entire organisation dedicated to fair trade. So I work with WFTO. What is a fair trade organisation? It has to be a business. It has to have benefiting marginalised producers at the heart of the activities. It has to follow the 10 principles of fair trade, and it should not be based around any one product. It can be any range of products. So we have fair trade organisations in all over the world. These can be marketing organisations with retail shops, they can be importers, exporters, as well as producers working in the ground. We have networks who are based at a national level who will coordinate and bring organisations together. We in Asia work, we're based in Thailand, and then we have offices in Africa, Latin America, North America and Europe, and then we have a global office in Kulenberg. We're very lean and mean, very small offices, very low overhead. Entire organisation is 100% democratic, one member, one vote, and all of these are practitioners. Very, very democratic organisation. We have an annual general meeting every year, and every 2 years we make decisions. So a very careful and considered movement that does not make backward decisions. In 2007, they decided to have a recognition for the organisations that they can carry to the market, and in 2013 this was launched on the market. So it's very, very bottom-up organisation. It takes a long time and a lot of consideration to arrive where it does. We have Asia, every region has a conference every 2 years. This was our conference, very much supported by Pak Won-soon, the Mayor of Seoul. I cannot say how impressed I am with Korea and everything they're doing for sustainability. I'm absolutely stunned, actually, and the support that we've received has been significant. Then every 2 years we'll have an international conference. In May this year was in Milan, where we have academic symposium and all the other things that everybody always has. And So then this happens every 2 years, and the next one in 2017 will be in Asia. Then we also have regional conferences, so the next conference we'll have in the region will probably be in Thailand in 2016, looking at promoting to the Asian market, raising awareness for consumers. But it's not, WFTO very much is a movement. It's about connecting and bringing people together. We do a lot of advocacy and campaigning. This is showing solidarity for the Penang sugar farmers, two of whom have been killed in campaigning for their land rights in the Philippines. So by being connected together as part of this movement, it's really a movement, not just a recognition or a label. We have Welfare Trade Day, we have a volunteer program, various activities. We have working groups on the various different aspects. Just as you look at the details, we look at things like the living wage, employing child labour, the ins and outs and details of those aspects. The guarantee system that we have to recognise fair trade organisation is for organisations rather than product. It's based on self-assessment, so self-reporting of the organisation and completed by a final external audit. So every organisation has to complete a self-assessment report, which it does about itself. This is then monitored by a peer visit. So we have a system which is coming up from a bottom-up approach, which comes from the trust area. We've heard mention of trust, thinking about relationships. This organisation is coming up from those roots, and so we've not wanted to lose that. So every 2 years, every member is visited by another member, just as in the participative guarantee system. So we've kept that in part of the system. And then we have a monitoring audit every 4 years, because this seems to be the process that's required. But our members do not want an expensive system. This is about benefiting marginalised producers. We can't have a system that's too expensive and leaves people out. So what's been really important to keep the costs as low as possible. And then finally, we have the Fair Trade Accountability Watch, which is the system by which anybody can report any transgressions or mistakes made by anyone who's within part of the system. So all of the organisations that work in fair trade with WFTO must follow all 10 principles of fair trade. If anybody is interested to know about this in great detail, I'm more than happy to do online training, talk through the whole system, or if we put you in contact with somebody in your country to talk it through in detail. For each of these 10 principles, we have a complex but easy to understand system for monitoring against those 10 principles. And you'll note that we also include the environment, and we have reference to the organic in that environmental part of the principles. And very often, being part of fair trade is the first step to going forward and working with organic and vice versa. So as I mentioned, the two parts of the system, the peer visit, which is part of participative guarantee system, then bringing along with that the monitoring audit, whereby we bring somebody who really understands fair trade and social standards to come in and look at the organisation. and have the whole organisation recognised as a fair trade organisation as such. So it's the whole organisation that's recognised, and it then is able to take its products out as per its own internal monitoring system to the public with the products. So this is the Fair Trade Accountability Watch tool. Anyone can go onto the website, press the button and report anything for any transgressions made, and this is an important part of our consumer interface. We are a movement. It is a movement. It's not just a label. And we feel that it's very important that people can come together, exchange knowledge, exchange ideas. And this should happen at a national level. So in many countries, we have national networks. We can exchange ideas and information. So listening to the ideas that have come forward over the last 24 hours, I can see so many common challenges between the organic movement and that of the movement of fair trade. After the excellent proposal that we've just had of Alex's about how we can communicate our mission to our consumers, how we have become relevant to the next generation, is absolutely core to what the challenges we have in fair trade. How do we make the food and the products tasty to the young generation who are so instant, so needs beautiful graphics, need beautiful presentation, need clear messages without losing our mission. We also have the challenge of the actual reality of what we do and how we do it, and the perception with the consumer who is so removed from the reality that they don't actually finding that reality, communicating the messages, which are complex in simple ways, is very challenging. So the challenge of communicating, staying together as a movement, rather than being recognised as a label or a certification body. And within WFTO, we really feel very strongly that where we add value is as a movement, in our advocacy work, in our campaigning work, in bringing people together for greater synergy, rather than purely a labelling organisation. Maximising on participative guarantee systems, making sure that we don't lose this extraordinary movement that's so important as part of how we move forward in the future. How we bring together the challenges of global and international trade and buying local. I'm a big, I buy everything in fair trade if I don't buy it second-hand. But if it came to, for example, honey, I would buy that from my local producer rather than fair trade, because I believe local first, fair trade second. So this is a big challenge to communicate and deal with, and how we can work together to engage with the predominant market in terms of co-constructing products and needs as per the needs of today. So IFOAM is going to have its conference in Delhi 2017, and WFTO is going to have its conference in Delhi in 2017. I very much hope that we can work together to bring ideas, to work together to see how we can build synergy with our very, very like-minded movements at this event. Yes. I just put this guy in here. This is the farmer whose sons are quarrelling, and he gives each of his sons a stick to break. They break them all, and then he bundles them together and gives them to his sons and says, now break them, and of course he can't. So I feel united we stand. Just to go back to the lady who was sweeping at the beginning of this presentation, actually her name is Sunita. She works for a fair trade organisation in Nepal. The This is her daughter. She goes to school, she's getting a good education, she has a good income, her future is secured, she works in a fair trade organisation. And not only Sunita, there's also Rekha, there's also Mukti, there's Pushka, and the lady on the right there, at the bottom, she's actually working in the clothing company that I'm wearing today. Now, this is organic cotton. It's all got certified, processed. So it's organic. Everything about it's fair trade. And this is the lady who's doing the sweeping there today. So thank you very much. I look forward to your questions, if there's many as possible.
Given the fact that we've already shopped over our break time, maybe we'll take one question and then we have one more speaker to speak and then we'll have a panel discussion. Any additional question? Anyone has any? Yeah.
Thank you very much for this nice presentation. How exactly do you see the relationship between the organic movement and the fair trade movement? Should every organic producer be fair trade and vice versa?
Absolutely not. I believe that where fair trade adds value is in those working with the marginalised producers who do not have social security. So particularly in those situations where there is potential for worker exploitation. So working particularly in the geographical south, so I think organic knows what it's doing, it knows how it's doing it, knows how you are the experts. And I think when it comes to fair trade, we are the experts, we know about it. So where we are working together, where we're overlapping, that's where we should be working together and working as closely as possible. I think we need to recognise our skills and expertise and work together where it's appropriate.
Move on. Just hold on to your questions, we will take them up subsequently. My takeaway from your presentation was that in Organic 3.0, the whole idea of the rights-based approach doesn't appear too strongly, and this is something that clearly WFPO is working with as a central theme, a rights-based approach. So that would be